So, yeah, this video took a good bit to come out. Now, it's not because I was doing a lot of research or because I put a lot of effort into the editing. It was because of this funny little thing. So, I use Filmora to make my videos, which was obvious when I used a watermark remover to get rid of the watermark when I was too lazy to record an entire video, that being the Ultra Kill video. But, I had the file, but fun fact, if you don't save the file to Filmora and give it a name, then fun fucking fact, when Filmora updates, the file's lost. Meaning that the video, and by that point in time, it was an hour long. I'll get into why that's both a good and bad thing. Yeah, all that week of progress was gone. But at the same time, I am kind of sort of proud Filmora did that, because the original take of this video, I talked about like Scott's FNAF lore and why Scott's FNAF is terrible, which I'll get into that in a shortened version in a bit. But that bit was 25 minutes alone, and so literally a quarter of the video was me talking about not even FNAF VHS, so, you know, thank you for more, but also, I fucking hate you. So, Five Nights at Freddy's. It doesn't need an introduction. You know it if you've been on the internet like me. It's a horror game made by a dad who was threatened and had to basically retire after he decided to donate some money to organizations, and apparently these organizations are very homophobic. I'm getting too deep into the iceberg here, but, basically, you know FNAF, and it has a way too complex story. I love complex stories. Petscop, Mandela Catalog, the Walton Files. By the way, those people who keep bitching about the Walton Files 4 taking so long, you do realize Martin Walls is like a human being, right? He has this thing called a life, right? But its story, in my opinion, has a lot of flaws and things that I really think hold it back from being a really good story. And I'll go and list them off real quick. A lot of the human characters don't really feel developed. A lot of people tell me, oh, Michael Afton's a very developed character, but I very much disagree with that statement. We see him talk in FNAF 4. We hear him speak in Sister Location, and we presume that he is the protagonist of 6. His thoughts and emotions are never revealed to the audience unless you count his little speech in Sister Location, but he never mentions anything about regret for his little brother, you know, nothing like that. It's just, hey dad, I found my sister, I'm gonna go find you now. William Afton. Where the fuck do I start? He's overstayed his welcome as a villain for way too fucking long. His whole goal of I want to be immortal is a Disney villain level fucking goal, and the plot reveal made him a lot less scarier in what was, by that point in time until Sister Location, a somewhat serious story. The game doesn't really seem to have a time era to set itself in, because sometimes the animatronics make sense. Like in FNAF 2, they had facial recognition software, which was a bit far for the 1980s, but I mean, I can see it, I can believe it. Only to find out that during FNAF 1, they had the Sister Location animatronics, which could make ice cream. You want to say hi to the audience, Willow? Want to say hi? Hey. Thank you for your input, Kitty. That was nice. But basically, it really killed the sense of it being a semi-believable story. I mean, paranormal. That's not realistic, but it felt somewhat realistic if you got rid of the paranormal aspect of the story. And then let's not even fucking forget Steel Wool, which has just made the story into what was originally a semi-decent ending, you know, FNAF 6, into, I don't even know. So many people act like Security Breach is good, or say, oh, it's fine, you know, they're making a DLC. Are we just gonna ignore the current state of the main game? Sure, you can bug fix it to high hell, but the story is still fucking terrible. Good God. You can fix the game, but damn, is that story unfixable. Unless they pull off a Borderlands 3 or fucking Duke Nukem Forever, this DLC, I don't know if it can save the story. But 3 main flaws I'll list is that the death and disturbingness of the story has seemingly become more PG through the years, when it never was PG, to be honest, from the start. Like, sure, there's no cuss words or cussing or anything, but we're talking about dead kids being put into suits, their ghosts haunting the suits, and a serial killer. And we're just cracking haha funnies about it now in the games. William Afton as a villain is terrible in my opinion, and is way too dumb, and just... I hate William Afton. He's just a terribly written villain in my opinion. And speaking of writing, other characters I feel like are not given a lot of, their perspective on the story. We only really get this out of Henry, and that's why I think the community loves him so much, because we see a genuine perspective from another person in this story. We don't just hear, "Father, it's me, Michael," and then never hear anything else again. Now, child groom Scrimpus McGrimpus decided to see if he could possibly fix this, I guess. Or, in other words, make his own take of it. And he basically fixed all 3 of those issues. And also, I like to personally think, revived the analog horror genre. Now, obviously, I gotta get the elephant out of the...
Criminal.
I would like to state this: if you like his work like me, that does not mean you have to like Scrimpus McGrimpus. I personally hate him, and I'm disgusted by his actions. I hated him for other things he did, such as forcing Baddington to cancel his remake of his series. Promised to make other projects, and 2 years later, never fucking delivered, and still only had FNAF VHS to his name. Hated on other creators because he was dying out, and, I wonder why he was dying out. It's almost like he didn't fucking upload anything for 2 fucking years. And that little cherry on top, he groomed a minor. So... like I said, you can like FNAF VHS, but hate Scrimpus McGrimpus. You can love the art, but hate the artist. So, that's how I'm gonna look. Okay. You have anything else? You have anything else? What? What is it? Okay. Bitch.
And I just burn.
Now, for this, because FNAF VHS is a very unique and different take on the story of Five Nights at Freddy's, we are going to analyze this as if FNAF didn't exist. The series, character names, we're all going to just pretend they don't exist. I'll probably say a name here or 2 there because it's said later on, and I don't feel like having to say this animatronic, you know what I mean? But, yeah, so we're going to kind of act like this isn't really connected and almost like it's its own thing. The first video we see is Fazbear Entertainment Video Manual. It is a tutorial for employees working at Freddy Fazbear's on how to take apart the animatronics to clean the endoskeletons. It's pretty normal, pretty calm. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Finally, take the torso piece and lift it upward until it is completely removed. Climb inside the torso and accept your death.
So this is our first clue. Something is very clearly wrong here. Now, the main question is, what is even in there? I mean, the voice says, now accept your death, but it's too small for an adult to fit in. Was a child put in there? Our next video we watch is the Bonnie joint movement testing. In this, we see them testing the joints of the Bonnie animatronic. Everything seems fine until we test out the eyes, but, I mean, then again, we're testing out the eyes. Of course it's going to stare at us. And then we move on to the jaw. we see a puppet fly towards a little gift box, and as it does, its eyes begin to glow and a horrific scream in the background is heard.
Gotcha. Scared you. Scared you.
So, now we have a few characters set up. We have Freddy, Bonnie, the puppet, and a strange, different looking version of Freddy that appears to be a bit more yellow than the rest. For now, we'll call him Golden Freddy. The next video is Sound Response Check. Here, they test the Chica animatronic and have her listen to sounds. Sound to the left, she looks left. Sound to the right, she looks right.
Music makes me feel better. It makes me think about birds. I like birds. They're pretty. One time I saw a bird sleeping in the snow. That's what bad dreams are about. I feel like I'm sleeping in snow, and I can't get up. It's too cold for me to do that. Things don't breathe when they sleep in the snow. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
I'm a bird.
It's obvious these animatronics are haunted or something along those lines. The face we see appears to be that of a child, and judging by the fact that these animatronics, you've been to Chuck E. Cheese, you know that they're meant to entertain kids. So it can be presumed either somehow by accident or someone forcefully killed kids and put them into the animatronics, and or they killed them in the building and their ghosts are now haunting the animatronics. They can't breathe, and this theme will occur later, but the idea that an 8-year-old is stuck in this, it's just a horrific thought. We move on to the Pirate Cove pre-show. By the way, can I just say, I love this frame of Foxy right here. I don't know why, but something about this frame of Foxy is just fucking hilarious. This is Foxy yelling at us that it's time for the show to start, and it's time for us to get our asses over to the ship.
3 minutes! Shiver me timbers! 3 minutes! I better see some crew over at the curtain, or I'ma toss Freddy and his merry band in Davy Jones's locker. Or worse. I'll start asking for raises! Yar, that's right! That got your attention! I'll see you we landlubbers over there!
We see 5 kids. One disappears, and the pre-show thing replays. Now the background music being gone and it getting cut off early.
I'll start asking for raises! Yeah!
After that, another kid disappears. And then suddenly a voice starts saying,
Viewing of this tape is prohibited. Discard it immediately. Viewing of this tape is prohibited. Discard it immediately. Viewing of this tape is prohibited. Discard it immediately. Viewing of this tape is prohibited.
We're then met with the villain of this series.
What's the matter, Foxy? I thought you wanted an audience.
We don't know his name yet, so we're gonna just call him the Happy Man because of his grin. We then see the Foxy animatronic standing still, staring at... Shout out to my friend CNS for coming up with like 90% of the theories I'm about to discuss. So, we can assume, if these kids are obviously dead, that they were most likely forcefully put into these suits by the Happy Man, perhaps. If you look closely on the Happy Man, you can see what appears to be a badge, meaning he was perhaps a worker or some type of security guard there, and perhaps abused his power and the fact he works there to kill the kids. We can presume that these animatronics, and presumably 4 of the 5 kids we've seen, haunt the animatronics we've seen in the tapes, with possibly the 5th one haunting the Golden Freddy animatronic. And me and CNS came up with this theory, but we kind of sort of wonder if perhaps, judging by an episode later, that the tapes we see and the way it shows the animatronics perhaps hints at how the kids died. Freddy's victim was shoved into the suit, maybe while they were alive. Bonnie's video involved joint testing. Maybe the Happy Man broke his bones and joints and his eyes and jaw. Chica was perhaps her victim was lured by sound, judging by how much she talks about the music. As for Foxy's victim, we're a bit confused on this, but judging by the go, go, go segment, it can be assumed that perhaps the victim walked in on another victim, and then the Happy Man took his life to prevent there being a witness. And the Golden Freddy animatronic, we don't know who haunts it yet, but judging by the fact it almost looks like it's being hung, perhaps the victim was suffocated to death. The next video really changes up what we understand.
I'm glad to see all of you wonderful people.
We then see an image talking about spring lock suits, and to summarize this long page, basically it doubles as both a suit and a endoskeleton for the animatronics. One mode lets it run as a robot, the other lets you wear it like a suit. We're then shown a shot of the golden bear. It appears the 5th victim was actually the old Golden Freddy suit.
Hey, do me a favor. Maybe sometime you could check inside those suits in the back room.
Let me tell you something you might not know. Before your brother died, something else happened at that place. Something was wrong with the suits. Watch. I'm gonna tell you a secret. The same thing happened to your father. It killed him, but only for a while. He's still out there. Do you want to find him? I'll show you. Don't worry about time, dates, or locations. You'll know when it happens. There'll be a gasoline canister in the back next to the second exit. Your father will be there in the building with you. He will look different. But you will know it's him. Then you can end this. For good. I know how you feel, Michael. It's a lot of responsibility. But when this is done, we'll all be free. You'll be free too. It may not seem like it, but I believe your brother will forgive you. I've forgiven you too. You are good, Michael. Despite what you might think, you do deserve this happy ending. I've been working all this time to give you that opportunity. I love you, Michael.
Now, see, a good friend is the best thing you could ever have. When life just isn't good to you, they'll always be there to help.
Yeah. For example, there was that time where I got stuck in a washing machine, and Fred had to cut a hole in it to get me out.
You know, you still have
So, there's a lot to unwrap here. So, it would appear the first 4 tapes of the series, because this is the 5th episode, were tapes found in the animatronic's head. We hear from a conversation by some guy on a phone, "Hey, can you check out those empty heads for me? I wonder what's in there." This might mean that either Michael works at Freddy Fazbear's, or it was a friend asking him and he broke in or something. Either way, he goes in there and we learn that apparently he has a little brother that passed away. Maybe even his little brother's one of the victims. We also learned that somebody got caught in a spring lock accident, which is apparently Michael's father. We don't know who it is yet, but they're making it sound like he's a threat. Maybe he's the happy man, but let's not jump to conclusions. They instruct him to go to a place called Fazbear's Fright, which seems to be a much more horror-themed version of Freddy Fazbear's. We'll get into that later. They provide oddly detailed instructions on how to quote-unquote end this. The puppet says that they think Michael's brother's forgiven them, and that they deserve a happy ending. Judging by this means that Michael was somehow tied into these events in some way or another. Perhaps his brother is a victim and he spent the rest of his life trying to find the killer. Maybe that's why he works there, to find the killer, if we're going off the idea that maybe he works there. This also provides a reason why the tapes have had these distortions. It appears the puppet has been trying to distort them to get Michael's attention, or when Michael ends up finding these. The puppet must be really good at betting, because this is a lot of ifs. If Michael can find the heads, if he works there, and if he decides to watch them. Either way, we can presume that Michael most likely saw these. So, here's our list of characters so far. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, the Puppet, Golden Freddy, the Happy Man, and Michael. You'll understand later why we're using that image to reference him. Our next video is Night Security Training Video. This is a video to teach the night guards and night security how the cameras and doors work in their office. Other than this weird segment where the music stops and nothing seems to occur,
pressing the white button will activate the light set outside the
normal
door, illuminating a possible dangers. During the night, we allow our animatronics to roam the building to keep them from locking up and keeping repair costs low. However, this does pose the threat of an animatronic entering your office and possibly damaging valuable equipment. Use the security doors to keep them out of your office.
Judging by the way the puppet seems to negatively talk about this person trapped in the suit or Michael's father, we can assume that perhaps Michael's father is maybe the Happy Man. While I know I said I wouldn't jump to conclusions, I mean, the evidence here kind of lays itself out. The way he talks, it doesn't sound believable that they just want to only talk to their son. The way they make it out, they might want to hurt their son. My friend Cenas came up with a theory about if Michael does indeed work at Freddy Fazbear's, how this may have affected him. Imagine you're working at Freddy Fazbear's night shift and you decide to check the security cameras. And you decide to check on a camera in this one spare room, only to be greeted with this sound. The utter fear that would trigger in someone. Not only is this a man screaming, and you can visibly see a corpse now in the suit, which appears to have now decomposed from age, but this is Michael's father. His father's cries of pain and help through just what's normally a training tape. Maybe he even saw this through the security cameras. This also tells us that the person trapped in the suit can also distort the VHS tapes just like the puppet and the other victims. So it looks like pretty much any ghost can mess with analog if they have the time and patience. Now, before I begin, let's build a little bit of a timeline here. Well, we're gonna have to after this video, but we have Freddy Fazbear's, and in this next one, a more high-tech, probably future version. Facial recognition testing is probably what got most people into this series like me. Basically, the futuristic-looking animatronics here have a security system that can detect if there's a criminal or an innocent person.
Kind of crime. When he sees a face, his eyelids should go up a little bit. When it's a criminal, he should play a tone and open his mouth. Good. Very good. Alright, we'll do a few more.
The character guiding this tape does, just shows images, and then he's perplexed by one of the images.
Criminal. Innocent. What's this doing here? The hell? Hey, no! Look, I know we can't have that guy back here, but you can't just put shit in without telling me. I could have died. God damn it, you know what? How about you take your facial recognition and shove it? Because I'm not working in this death trap anymore, starting right now!
Scrappus McGrimpus, I don't know how, but you single-handedly made the most terrifying face for a villain I have ever seen in my entire fucking life. We now have a face to connect to the Happy Man. This grinning fucking creep. Judging by the distorted image and the fact it's purple, just like how the Happy Man we saw before was purple, we can assume that this is the Happy Man's face and thus Michael's father. Now, something to note here is how it seems like the futuristic animatronics knew that this was a criminal, and judging by the dialogue where he says,
"What's this doing here? The hell?"
Look, I know we can't have that guy back here, but you can't just put shit in without telling me. I could have died.
We can't have that guy back here. Does that mean the business knew about him? They knew about this criminal or possible worker? Perhaps they're trying to just forget about it, cover it all up? And my other theory I came up with was perhaps the idea that the futuristic animatronics are being possessed by a ghost and are manipulated by the puppet. If the puppet has the power to manipulate VHS tapes, I'm pretty sure it could probably mess with the security system. Perhaps that's why it turned hostile, because the puppet recognized that face, hence the audio criminal. It's the puppet telling the animatronic that this is a criminal that only they know. So, once again, minor recap here. Characters and plot we have so far. We have Michael, the Happy Man, which are our two human characters. The victims, by the way, I forgot to mention them. Jesus, I'm a terrible person. The victims themselves possess the animatronics Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, the Golden Freddy animatronic, and the puppet. The Yellow Bunny is being possessed by the corpse of the Happy Man. It appears that this new futuristic version perhaps takes place in a time in the future, obviously, with a more advanced technology like facial recognition. The next video is simply called Security Footage. And in it, a conversation between two of the ghosts, who we learn are actually siblings.
Hi, Lucas. Hey. Do you think it'll be him this time? I don't know. Probably not. For all we know, he might just be gone. Wherever he is, I hope he's sorry for what he did to you. I don't think he'd be sorry for anyone. Well, I hope so anyway. You should be sorry because you're a very good brother, and I don't want you to be sad. Thanks. Please don't cry. I know you're sad now, but one day you won't be. We'll go to heaven because we're supposed to. I'm so glad you don't really know what's happening. Do You want me to go look? Sure. I'll be in the back again. Okay.
This episode melted my heart so bad. It really reminded me, these are kids. And Lucas's younger sister, we don't have her name yet, but she very clearly is a lot more ignorant to what's going on than Lucas. And seeing him cry, and the only thing he can do in response is lift Bonnie's arms up to try to cover his face that isn't even his own. It's just heartbreaking. Our next video is Company PSA. It teaches us some very critical information. The Golden Bear, or now as we know, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie animatronics were before the normal animatronics. And presumably these much more futuristic ones we saw in facial recognition are after even the normal ones. The main reason they're being replaced is a quote-unquote,
"Ever since the unfortunate incident from last week, we've been deciding on where the company should go from here. We've decided on something that will require higher effort, but will ultimately be best for the company. We'll be rebranding from the ground up, replacing all of our animatronic characters with 4 new ones, which use much safer technology than the ones we previously used. They will no longer feature any kind of spring lock technology and will not be wearable. Wearable costumes will be completely separate. Along with the new animatronics, most of the main area of the building will be rearranged accordingly. There will be 2 different stages, one for the main 3 and another for a separate character. Wall posters will be replaced and the prize area will be restocked. After the restaurant opens back up, some of our returning patrons might be confused about these changes. Where did Fredbear and Spring Bonnie go? Who are these new characters? In a situation where you are asked anything along these lines, here is what you say in reply. Fredbear does not exist. Spring Bonnie does not exist. Nothing happened to anyone. He does not exist. He does not exist. He does not exist. He does not exist.
I don't exist. You said you were sorry. That you loved me. But I know you're lying. You don't love me. That's what you always said. I don't love you either. And I'll take you with me. So you'll know how it feels to stop existing.
Now, presuming that these videos have been targeted towards Michael, the ghost that haunts Fredbear very clearly has a hatred to him. And also, this victim may not actually have died at the hands of the Happy Man. Remember that shot and non-existent video of Fredbear's mouth getting all bloody? What if somehow the incident, in some way, was actually something accidental that perhaps Michael accidentally caused, causing the victim, that we'll just call the bite victim for reasons, caused him to then die and haunt Fredbear, thus meaning he has an extreme hatred to Michael. But then, what about the part where he says, "I thought you loved me"? If it's just a random kid, I don't know if Michael would say that. Either this was one of Michael's best friends when he was younger, maybe a sibling, or something like that. Either way, the ghost here has a large hatred to him. Animated cartoon is the next one, and we see a bit more of the Fredbear Ghost's take, but we're skipping ahead too far. For the most part, it starts out just like an average weird cartoon, and then, as they're doing their cartoony things, Chica notices that there's 2 extra seats where they're all gonna go eat pizza. Eventually, Chica goes snooping around and finds a photo. A bear and a bunny are missing, most likely Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, highlighting the whole idea that the company just tried to forget Fredbear and Spring Bonnie ever existed to ignore the incident. Shown calm footage of grass with a Fredbear doll. Tomorrow is another day. The music is kinda calming and
We're never getting out of this.
we can now assume that that face that we just saw is the bite victim's face. And judging by how strange his face looks, and something they're about to say later, it can be assumed that somehow they were put into Fredbear's mouth and thus caused his face to be all distorted. We then see a Foxy mask with the puppet in the background as we hear laughter.
To Charlie, you're wrong. You know you are. My brother's a monster. He killed me. He's the reason my head is missing parts. And then everyone pretended like it never happened, like I don't exist. What makes you think he'd be any different now? Stop saying that he'll save us, it isn't true. What you're doing is hurting us more. To Nicole, Lucas, Angie, Benjamin, I'm sorry. I don't care if you hate me for saying it, but there really is no way out. We're gonna be here forever. I've accepted it. Can't you accept it too? Please. I don't want to be alone.
And once again, my heart just broke. This kid, the anger he feels is 100% justified, to be honest. We now know and can presume, well, more presume than know, that the person in the fox mask was this kid's brother and caused them to die via putting Fredbear in there, putting them in Fredbear's mouth. I'm having a stroke. And then the business just tried to wipe it away and act like it didn't happen. And you gotta remember, these kids are probably below the age of 10. Can you imagine a 10-year-old suddenly, like, waking up as a ghost and everyone ignores them? Like, they don't even act like he died. It's almost like he never even existed in the first place. And to him, it's all his brother's fault. Hence why he says he wants his brother to know what it's like to not exist. He wants to know what it's like to be ignored and act like you never were around in the first place. So, once again, brief recap of what we believe is going on. Michael is related to the Happy Man. The Happy Man killed the victims and thus put them into suits. They now haunt the various animatronics. One of these victims was not exactly by his hands. A random child and his brother, who we can presume the brother wore a foxy mask, was being picked on. The older brother decided to put his younger brother inside of Fredbear's mouth, and we can presume Fredbear bit down, thus ruining the child's skull, hence what he means by his body is now missing parts. This kid presumably then led on to haunt Fredbear. The others, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and the puppet, were haunted by other kids. I'll go in a little bit of a spoiler here. We don't really find out how the puppet's origins came to be. I kind of wish it covered that more, but all we know is the puppet seems to be a sort of mother figure to the ghosts. We also now have names. We've already seen Lucas, but now we know the puppet is named Charlie. We'll find out whose names belong to who soon. Or, well, at least their surnames. The timeline is Fredbear's Family Diner, the normal animatronics, and then the much more futuristic ones. And judging by just some ideas here, Fazbear's Fright either is after the futuristic era or just somewhere else in the timeline. The next video is Memories, and is, to me, the most bone-chilling of the series. We finally learned the name of the Happy Man. William Afton. I don't think I could do this video justice, so I'll just let it play and interrupt every now and then.
Hello, whoever you are. You just found a cassette tape hidden in my bedroom. Isn't that strange? A man like William Afton, someone so simple and plain, hiding a cassette tape. Why would he be hiding anything? I'm sure that if you're from around here, you've heard of the somewhat recent happenings with Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. 3 cases of one, in one case of 2. All of them adding up to the 5 missing children of Freddy's. That was me. I'll elaborate on that later. And, you know, I wouldn't call myself plain either. I mean, people may think I'm plain when they first meet me. You know, just a father taking care of himself and his kids who tragically lost his youngest in '83 and supposedly just got over it, right? Wrong. I'll never get over it. And the fact that he died isn't the only reason. You see, Michael did it. Not a surprise, most people know that, but it wasn't an accident. He keeps saying it was, but he's a liar. He hates me, and he hated Joseph. See, Mike wasn't settled with being the failure, and how I loved Joseph just so much more, so he tormented him, eventually killing him. And, you know, I mean, that's why I didn't love him in the first place. He was always a terrible kid, not worth my time. But now I hate him more than I ever have. He's done so much to hurt my soul in one day alone. My God, Joseph.
We now know that the bite victim was named Joseph, and that the person wearing the Foxy mask was Michael. Michael accidentally killed his little brother, who then went on to haunt Fredbear. Judging by how he says he was always the terrible kid, it can be presumed that William Afton perhaps mistreated his son, Michael, before any of these situations went down. Perhaps he was physically or verbally abusive to his own son long before any of this happened. Maybe that's why he tormented Joseph, because he knew Joseph wasn't being treated like this, and he was angry that he was being treated in like that and being abused, and thus led to him causing the incident that accidentally killed his little brother.
Ever since he killed him, I've wanted to put my hands around his neck and just squeeze the life out of his lungs, but of course if I ever did that, I'd get caught. I couldn't work because I was thinking too much about Mike. I couldn't concentrate on anything. The papers started piling up, and it kept fogging up my mind, and I needed a release. Then I had an idea. Maybe it didn't necessarily have to be Michael. It could be any other brat as long as I like him. Now, where do all of those children go? Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And hey, if they're like Michael, they deserve it. I went up there about 4 times, picked the worst kids of the bunch, took them back, and I gave it to them. I couldn't do much, of course. They'd start squealing. So I made it quick enough to be efficient, but long enough to make it last. It was hell for them, but it was heaven for me. And then I leave, without the slightest bit of guilt.
The kids that William has been killing, he's been killing them because they remind him of Michael. Michael served unknowingly as the catalyst to multiple deaths. But can we really say it's Michael's fault? Judging by the dialogue from William, it seems like he mistreated Michael long before any of this. So, is it really William's fault here for mistreating Michael so terribly that Michael went to pranking his brother and then caused this?
So, there you go. And now that you've heard this, you should know that I check this spot every day to see if this tape is moved. I've seen it so many times, I'll be able to notice even the slightest difference. I will know. So you better put it back, Michael, as neatly as you can, and start running.
every time I reach that point in the video, I get goosebumps. The voice actor, whoever he is, did a beautiful job portraying this monster. So, let's digest what we've just learned. I'm not going to recap the timeline, that would take a bit too long, and besides, I've already done that 3 times. So, the Happy Man is the father of Michael Afton and Joseph Afton. Michael Afton, who we can presume liked to wear a foxy mask, perhaps to maybe scare Joseph, decided to pull a prank on Joseph one day of some kind, or did something along those lines. He decided to put Joseph within the mouth of Fredbear. However, Fredbear ended up biting down, killing Joseph. William, already a terrible father and hating Michael, unironically wanted to just kill Michael, but he knew he couldn't because he'd get caught. That's the only reason he didn't even do it. He would if he knew he wouldn't get caught. And like he says, he decided to substitute it with other kids. And thus, he goes out and, well, let's think about this for a second. Follow a stranger into a room. I mean, young kids are already taught not to follow strangers. So, maybe they'll listen to a mascot or a character. What if the suit is what he wore to lead kids to the back rooms and then kill them? And one day, maybe trying to hide, judging by the panicked breathing, he got caught in a spring lock failure. Michael Afton, we can presume, who's probably at least above his 20s by the time he finds the 4 tapes, is, and probably has worked maybe at Freddy's before. We can maybe even argue that technician in facial recognition, maybe that's Michael. And let's just step back for a second and think about this through Michael Afton's shoes. You work at a pizza place your father helped create, and you have one of your friends call you on the phone and he asks you, hey, can you check the heads of those animatronics? I swear there's something in them. You find 4 tapes hidden in their heads. You watch them, and they speak to you. They ask you to help them, to stop your father. That they know who your father is and that your father put them in this situation. And we're not even talking about Michael's childhood. Perhaps the reason Michael's little prank was so violent was because William was violent to him. The way he, like he says, he hated him before even all this went down. And so it's not much of a stretch to say that he probably physically and verbally abused him, and at the minimum verbally abused him. That can ruin a kid's mental health. And the way William sees to praise Joseph, it sounds like Joseph was never treated like this. Michael, out of jealousy, spite, anger, he decides to put his little brother in Fredbear's mouth, thus causing the incident of '83. We can only assume the abuse had to have gotten worse after this. And God only knows what Michael was treated like, what he went through, the things he had to suffer with. And the guilt, the endless guilt of knowing that he caused his little brother to die. And probably upon finding these tapes, if he still hadn't already been stuck with it, the guilt just leaped right back. Not only does he now know he is responsible for the death of his little brother, he is responsible for the fake death of his dad, the death of 6 innocent kids, including his little brother, and has pretty much ruined a business, has ruined lives, has ruined families. The amount of psychological stress and pressure this must put on a man, it's hard to think about. The terror that has happened is just horrific. Anyway, one video left, conveniently named Finale. This episode is audio logs or audio picked up from William Afton while he was stuck in the Spring Bonnie suit. He comments how he should be dead, but he's not. And it appears he even knows about how the kids haunted the animatronics. Now, there's way too much to go through here, so I'll just skim through some of the important parts and analyze them.
I'm trapped. The locks went off while I was wearing it. Somehow I thought that thing would protect me. After all, I'm not good with thinking on my feet. Now I'm awake. My heart stopped beating, and they put the boards back up, so there goes my only way out. Either way, it hurts too much for me to get up. I guess it works the same for me as it did for them. I die and end up as one of these. I just wish I knew about that part earlier. I don't know how long I'm gonna be in here. They're still alive. I can hear them moving around outside. Someone must have put them back together. I thought this place was closed down and looked dirty enough. And they probably think I'm still dead. Or they just hate me that much. They really are just like him. They deserved it. It shows. I bet they're wondering why they're not up in heaven right now. They got me, so why aren't they dancing up there with all the angels? We're not going anywhere because he doesn't care. God doesn't care about justice or what's right or wrong. God just likes to watch interesting things happen. I would know. I would know. I hope he's treating you better than me, Joseph.
We see clearly he still has love to Joseph and hate to Michael, but on November 12th, his emotions change for just a moment.
Michael! Don't leave me here! Michael! Michael! Help me!
This scene me and CNS discussed really shows how terrible the isolation here must have been getting to him. Michael, the kid that he literally said he wanted to strangle to death, he is now begging and crying for him to rescue him. Perhaps maybe this is the exact same message that we saw on the night security training tape, just a different part of it. He is so desperate to get out that he just wants even the person he despises to free him. But on November 13th, he's back to his old ways.
How could you do that to your own father? I hate you. I've always hated you. I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to make it hurt. Oh, how I miss the way you used to cry when I screamed at you. It's going to get so much worse. I'm going to get out. And I'm going to find you. And I'll give you a real reason to cry. You could just go without me and leave me rotting in a room for God knows how long. Another year, I don't know. I've lost track of time. I can't. I don't. I'm alone. Damn you. God damn all of you.
On October 6th, he says that he's now been taken out and doesn't know where people have now taken him. Comments how he sees the Foxy mask that Michael wore. Now, judging by the fact that in previous tapes it's mentioned he's at Fazbear Frights, it can be assumed that he is being taken to Fazbear Frights. As to what Fazbear Frights is, I presume, judging by the, name and the logo, it's most likely a building trying to highlight the mysteries and incidents and the paranormalness of things that went on at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. I think a restaurant would be more known for the amount of kids that went missing than just how good the pizza is. And so they decided to bank off this concept and drag William into it. Probably using him in a display.
I got out. I got out. I don't know where they took me, but it's somewhere new. So much more room to breathe. There's so many things in here. I remember every single one of them. They have your mask, Michael. The fox. I hate looking at it. It makes me feel so alive. Come on, Michael. Come visit me. I know you'll do it. She'll make you do it. I'll give you the warmest welcome you can imagine. I see you.
He's close. Keep your match alight. Be ready, Michael.
While it might be hard to see, here's a clearer image. The disturbingly oh my god, this image creeps me out so the distorted, grotesquely ripped apart face of William Afton, it just makes you, ugh. And the fact that he was able to speak with his face looking like that, it's a scary concept. We're then shown the reward of Michael finally burning down Fazbear Frights, himself, and his father. Nicole Morals, who was the oldest, 13. Lucas, and now we know his sister, Angie Collins. Lucas was 10. Angie was 6. Benjamin Nelson was 9. Charlie Emily was 11. Joseph, when he died, was 9. And Michael finally reunites with him in forgiveness and peace at age 38. The story concludes. And the nightmare, sparked by a kid's anger at his abusive father, concludes. Do I even need to explain why this is just so much better than Scott Cawthon's take on FNAF? I mean, Scott Cawthon, the creator of FNAF, his story is so much worser compared to Scrimpus McGrimpus' story. FNAF, one made by Scott, in my opinion, has been downhill ever since anything past 4. Not to, one, the yearly releases, so nobody gets time to digest, make theories, come up with ideas of what's going on. But things like the sci-fi nature of it just kill any real horror. I mean, when I think of FNAF, I don't think of 80s pizza restaurant. I think of some shit like Sister Location or fucking Security Breach, where it's futuristic sci-fi. And in my personal opinion, I feel like with Scott's FNAF, it's going to be a bit of a stretch, I feel like dead kids in that series, his take, have just become like a fucking background concept. It's never elaborated how these kids feel, the horrors they're going through, what they're feeling, the parents and what they're going through. It's pretty much never looked at. The one time this is ever really looked at is Henry. And this is why I think so many people, me included, love his character. Not only because I love his voice actor and final speech, but it's because it's a character that's actually a fucking character. It's not some Mike Lafton BS of you just assume what's going on and, just fucking, oh, well, he might be the protagonist of 6, he might be working here to avenge his brother. He might. And while sure, mysteries can work and mights and maybes add to a mystery, but too many just make the story feel too complex and make it just uninteresting, in my opinion. I'm not saying that could be done. I mean, Petscop did it and I fucking love it. But it's because the tone's realistic. It's because there's set characters, set dates, and you can piece together a timeline from events and names. What are the name characters? Michael, Henry, William, Elizabeth, Charlotte. No other kid has a name. No other character is important to the story. It's just these 5. We pretty much get nothing out of Elizabeth because she's a fucking child. Michael talks once in the series, and the rest you just have to kind of assume he would react like a human being. We're never shown this minus the I'm sorry in FNAF 4, which is just him saying, I'm sorry that I, almost got you killed. I gotta remember, he doesn't have a canonical name in Scott's FNAF, it's Crying Child. Just give us a fucking name, Scott, Jesus Christ. But basically, Scott's FNAF, in my opinion, it's not realistic, and I think one of the main things with FNAF VHS that makes it better than Scott's is one very simple thing. Not a better written villain, not a better organized timeline or better characters. One thing. It has an ending. Scott's FNAF, in my opinion, when FNAF 3 came out, I thought the story was pretty okay. And then FNAF 4 came out and it's a prequel. Okay, cool. We get some more info, but nothing's been progressed. We just get info about the past. And then Sister Location came out. And all meaning of FNAF 3's ending is now gone. Because William Afton's back, and now we have a protagonist. Which, sure, you can look at this as a positive. I mean, yeah, you could probably look at it as a positive. Story's still going, and we have a protagonist, essentially. And FNAF 6 was a perfect conclusion. Loose ends are tied up, but not all of them, just to keep a bit of a mystery. We finally have an ending. Everyone's gone. Michael and his little brother are now resting in peace. Henry is reunited with his daughter. And William now rots in the deepest pits of hell. Yeah, no, joke's on you. You see, Freddy Fazbear Entertainment wanted to actually make a VR game, and somehow the... Hold on, let me reread it again. They scanned the circuit boards of Springtrap's The Suit's remains. Bro. Unit. And then Security Breach, and that is such a hot, steaming pile of shit that would require an entirely different video to cover. But basically, every ending doesn't feel satisfying anymore, with the exception of 6, and I'd argue 4 and 3. Honestly, half the endings don't feel that satisfying, because you know it's going to go on. Because I always come back. It's not that he always comes back. It's that Scott can't write a new villain. You had some promise with Vanny, And then that got shoved out at fucking last minute, apparently. And something I really do like with FNAF VHS is how a lot of things are not fully explained exactly, but it gives you enough of a hint to assume what's going on. William Afton bringing up how he loved to hear Michael screaming back then obviously shows he was verbally abusive to him back when he was not dead. The puppet telling Michael, "I love you," might have been a hint that Charlotte actually had a crush on Michael when they were both younger. But unfortunately, because Charlotte was killed, possibly just because she was in the wrong place, wrong time, or because William Afton knew about her crush on Michael, she was killed and put into the puppet. The whole futuristic animatronics never being expanded on, I think, is kind of neat because we know it's obviously a version of Freddy's in the future, but it's very obvious even that didn't work because Fazbear Frights then became a thing. Maybe more kids went missing at the new one. But what I love with FNAF VHS is just the much better story, the much better ending, the way, way better written version of William Afton, and overall the medium of horror it uses. It took FNAF 7 fucking games to finally change the format of look to the left, look to the right, look at your camera. 7 games where they're like, what if we try VR? And you know what? Yeah, sure, it was fun. What if we try free roam? The Joy of Creation did better than Security Breach at free roam. Analog horror, in my opinion, and if you haven't realized by the 2 fucking analog horror series I'm basically making, well, kind of analog, a lot of them do use analog-based horror. Analog horror, in my opinion, can tell really, really good stories. It can be used to tell stories of murder mysteries, stories of evil biblical monsters, of missing people and them haunting things. Petscop, I'd even argue, is not analog horror, but, something along those lines of a lost kind of footage. A lot of the VHS tapes in this series feel like they've been left to rot, and if this is presumably Michael watching them, I can just picture him in some 2008 apartment just throwing them into a VCR and just sitting on a couch, either with tears at his eyes from the yelling of his little brother, or just his mouth open, just in pure shock of the horrors he's witnessing from a VHS tape. It'd be like your grandma passing away, you put in a VHS tape in a VCR, and her ghost is calling you every slur in the book. Like, that would mentally hurt you. And, like I said in the intro, you do not have to support Scrimpus McGrimpus's actions to love this series. I love FNAF VHS. It's what encouraged me to get into the analog horror scene myself. That and Walton Files and Mandela Catalog. Those are my 3 main inspirations. I mean, hell, I have essentially a FNAF VHS ripoff I'm working on, a Mandela Catalog fan series. Go check them out if you're ever interested. I like to think they're unique enough to be kind of their own thing and run off their own little merits. But FNAF VHS, in my opinion, will always be better than Scott's. You cannot change my mind about that. You cannot change where I stand about that. I will stick to that opinion to my grave. Unless another FNAF fan, recreation comes out that's just as good as this, I'm gonna keep my opinion. And to Scrimpus McGrimpus, if you're watching this, I want to knock your teeth down your throat.